Hi, I'm Neil Adams, Assistant Sporting Director here at Norwich City, and I'm here today to answer some of your questions. So George has asked, how long does the process of signing a player take? That one's almost like, how long's a piece of string? This could be really quick, or it could drag on for weeks and weeks or months and months. Briefly, so the process, obviously, you make contact with the club that you want to sign the player from, whether that be their sporting director, their chairman, their chief executive, and obviously ask for permission to talk about the player. If there's a deal there to be done, the negotiations then begin with that. And you may also then be asking for permission to speak to the player and his agent. Of course, negotiations are then going on from the player's side and from the club side. If and when an agreement is reached, then the process goes on to the next stage where you might want to bring the player in to speak to the head coach so he can be informed how he's going to be asked to play, whether he wants to come, you want to have a look at the facilities and things like that. And then if and when that's agreed, then you're looking to finalise things then with the club secretaries getting involved, with the process of the contracts being drawn up, and also the agents as well. So can be really lengthy at times. I've seen these deals go through in 2 or 3 days and also 2 or 3 months. So there's never two the same. They all take either, they're quite quick, or they can be quite long at times. So Chad has asked, do we have relationships with other clubs regarding loaning players out? And are we in the process of rekindling the relationship with Kings Lynn? Answer to that is yes. On the first part, certainly. When I was the loans manager, obviously one of the roles of the loans manager is to establish a link of contacts with other clubs, maybe your go-to clubs. So for example, we had good relationships with clubs in Holland, in the second division in Holland, Telstar and Dordrecht and Sittard. Obviously Todd Cantwell to Sittard. We had 3 players, including Sebastian Soto, who went to Telstar, and also Dordrecht. And you establish those links with them through time, really, and through negotiations and through friendships as well. So that if we decided a player wanted to go on loan and we felt the Dutch second division was the best option for him, then likely would be we'd probably call one of those 3 clubs first to see if it suited them and it suited us. But obviously the main thing is for the player. The situation for the player and the club has to be right for the player. So we're not just going to send a player out to the Dutch second division because we've got good contacts there. It's got to fit in with what the player needs, style of play, would that suit him, and obviously suit us. In terms of the second part, the relationship with Kings Lynn, rekindling it, it's never really stopped, to be fair. There might not have been players going as frequently as in previous seasons, but Steve Cleve and Tommy at Kings Lynn know that they're more than welcome to come down anytime, watch our under 21 games, watch under 18 games, and almost have first dibs on a player that might be available for loan. So that relationship it suits both. Obviously Kings Lynn's on our doorstep. They're getting senior football if that's the level that they need to be at. So that's something certainly, that hasn't fizzled out, and is something that we would seriously consider if it was right for both clubs again. So Jack's asked, what do we look for in a club when we're arranging loans for some of our players? Similar to one of the answers before, it has to be around the player first and foremost. And that could be a junior player, it could be a player with some experience, it could be one of the senior players, all for various different reasons, as we've seen. If it's for the younger player, then you're looking at their development pathway. What do the academy want from the player? What does the first team coach want from the player? And then it's a thorough process, similarly to not just picking up the phone to the one club. What does the club play like? What is their playing style like? What is the head coach like? References from clubs, and then obviously speaking to the player as well. Does he want to go there? We talked about a lot of our players have been loaned abroad. Some players might not want to do that. Some player might prefer to stay here in England and have an opportunity in England, but others embrace it. And again, there's no right or wrong. Similarly, if it's a senior player, what we're looking for from the loan club then absolutely is playing time. The player has to play, otherwise what is the point in loaning him out? So if we have a senior player here in the squad who the head coach decides and the player wants to go and play on loan, then of course we're looking for as many games, as many minutes as possible. That can't always be guaranteed, of course. It's then on the player. You can sort out a move in the most minute detail, but if the player isn't playing well, he's not going to get picked, and we can't then complain. So we try and do everything before the player kicks his first ball on loan, and we think we do a really good process with that. I did it for 6 years. Andy Hughes is now doing a great job as the loans manager, but obviously once the loan starts, it's all down to the player. Ryan and James, as well as a number of other people, have asked about our long-term strategy for South America. I think obviously it's quite topical at the minute with the 2 South American players that we've signed in Nunes and Sarra. But it's almost important to, before I answer the question is what is the long-term strategy, is to look back. And this hasn't been initiated just a few weeks ago or a few months ago. This was started almost 3 or 4 years ago with Stuart and the recruitment team, who, once we realised that we were going to be coming out of Europe, what would be the next step? Where would be the next hunting ground, if you like? Because we got a lot of players from Europe, and obviously now it's a lot more difficult with the work permits to get these players in. So good foresight in thinking as, okay, where could the next area be? And Asia was one option, Africa another, and South America another. And there's been a lot of work done, a lot of really good work done in preparing us for this moment where we have signed our first players from South America. And the long-term strategy for that will continue. People will know about the link we have now with Coritiba. That link is an informal link with the club, but we like to think that that's going to pay dividends for us, certainly in terms of helping us have eyes and ears on the ground in South America who could advise us with their database. We've also employed 2 full-time scouts, one in Brazil, one in Argentina, and we are targeting the areas in South America, Argentina, Brazil, Uruguay and Ecuador as well. And things like Nunes popping up from Chile as recommendations and advice. So the long-term strategy is there. The strategy's been in place now for a while, and we'd like to think this is something that's going to grow and continue, not just solely from signing players side, but also from commercial and marketing and things like that. And Sam Jeffrey's doing a great job in initiating some of those objectives already. So we'd like to think this is something that will continue, and maybe also in other areas as well. Andy has asked, what do we do to help the foreign players settle in? Really good question, because it's something that you can either pay lip service to, or you can really make sure that you do everything possible. And I would hope that both Nacho and Sarra would say that they've been really pleasantly surprised at the amount of detail we've gone into it. Of course, you're doing everything possible to make them feel welcome and to feel settled, whether they're single, whether they're married, do they have children. The due diligence goes back a long, long way before you sign the player, in order that you can maybe put processes in place to make that an easier transition for the player. With the 2 South Americans we've signed now, we've done, for the first time again at the club, we've employed a translator who is fluent in both Spanish and Portuguese, which obviously is ideal for Amarcy and for Sarra as well. And they, I think, have been really sort of taken aback by that we've employed an interpreter full-time to be with them, because it's so important. I mean, we're signing top players that we feel are going to have a big future at our club, and we can't have them not really understanding what's going on. So Alan Roslin, who is the interpreter we brought in, has done a great job with both of them. It's to make sure when they're in the meetings with Dean and Craig and Liam, they know absolutely what the manager and the coaches want. Alan sits in between the 2 players at the back, has got a really soft tone of his voice, so he doesn't interrupt Dean when Dean's going through tactical presentations, but he has to continually talk the interpreter obviously through the presentation. Dean's worked with him before, so he's used to it, and I think it works really well in that whatever Dean and the coaches are asking is being absolutely translated to the players, so there is no excuse then, and there's nothing lost in translation. Other things, making them feel welcome, bringing the families over, taking them out for dinner, introducing them to the owners and to other key members of staff. But just doing really what you would probably want done to yourself, making you feel as welcome as possible, making it as easy as possible to settle these players in, ultimately so they produce their best performances out on the football field. B. Jones asks, what is my relationship like with Dean Smith, and do we speak every day? It's good, it's very good, and hopefully that will continue for a long, long time. And yes, we do speak every day. Stuart and myself are in an office right next to Dean, and 2 down from the head coach, the other coaches. So yeah, we speak every day on an informal basis, sometimes on a formal basis in meetings, and we feel that's really important. Sometimes the best conversations are just involuntary. You know, you're just passing someone with a coffee and, did you see this? Did you see that? What about this? What about that? And you know, you sit down and an hour later you realise you've just lost an hour of your day. But so many good things can come out of those conversations that just happen. But Dean's very, very approachable, as are his coaching staff. You know, easy to talk to, easy to put things to and put things past him. Is open. He literally has his office door wide open, as do all the coaches. You know, it is an open door policy, and I think that creates a really good environment and atmosphere. So yeah, we have a really good relationship with Dean and his coaching staff, and like I say, hopefully that continues for a very long time. Pauline's asked, have we been unlucky with injuries, or is it something that we're not doing or are doing at the training ground, and has this been discussed? Yeah, it seems to be, we discuss this every year. Every club gets injuries, every team gets injuries, and of course once you get in beyond the norm, then you're looking to see if there's anything in it. Is there something that we're doing wrong, or is there something that we maybe should be doing? And obviously this is again dived into in a lot of detail. The club tries everything within its power to keep the players fit. That might mean them training more, it might mean them having a day off or being reduced in the workload, but obviously the contact injuries are something you can do nothing about. If someone's going to 2-foot you, you're going to be out for 6 months, and it doesn't matter how the training program is, what your sports science is, what your physiotherapist is like, you know, it's a contact injury, almost unavoidable. I suppose it's the muscle injuries that most clubs will try and limit, because there is a responsibility with that can be traced to overtraining or undertraining, preparing the players ready for games to play 90 minutes, 95, 96 minutes. But you can be assured that every injury is thoroughly documented, monitored, analysed, reviewed, in the hope that they're avoidable again. But obviously sometimes it comes in waves. You can have a month of where you get nothing, and then the next 3 or 4 weeks you've got 5, 6, 7, 8 people on the treatment table. Sometimes it can be unlucky, but certainly there's no stone left unturned into trying to trace and find out if there is a reason for why injuries are happening. Then we make sure it's been done. Jeff Peters has asked, how many people do the academy employ, and what is their relationship like with the first team staff? I would say, I don't know exact number, probably about 50 employees of the academy, plus the players, obviously. And a key part of our philosophy, our model, if you like, is the academy. Everybody knows that. We're really proud of our record of bringing players through. Steve Weaver and his team deserve huge credit for keeping that conveyor belt going. You know, there's a pressure on every academy, particularly a Cat 1 academy, to produce players, and they've certainly done that. We're really proud what has been on the pitch, and the players that are playing for us now are players that have been sold and moved on and are playing elsewhere. But so obviously key to that is to make sure that the relationship between the first team and the academy is as good as it possibly can be. We feel we've got a really good advantage over some clubs that were on the same site. I'm certainly a big believer that I don't like academies where they're 10 miles away from where the first team train. It's difficult then to drop a player over into training. If someone, Dean or Craig, need a player, oh, well, they're 10 miles away, it's going to be really difficult then. But if they're training on the next pitch, it can be really easy to do. So the relationships almost naturally form. Steve and his coaches and the under-21s coaches, they interact with the first team on a regular basis again, and obviously the games are watched, players come across and train with the first team, but it goes beyond that as well. It goes to the office staff and to the physios, and it's not just the coaches. So we try and promote a really healthy relationship between the first team and the academy. We're on the same site, there really is no excuse not to, but again, it's something we're very proud of, and as always with the academy, they judged on, like the first team are judged on winning games, the academy are judged on how many players they can produce for the first team. And certainly in that respect, we are really proud of what our academy has achieved over a number of years now. Philo was asked, is Dan Barden okay, and is there any update on his condition? Really pleasingly, I mean, Dan obviously had cancer, was very worrying for all of us, and obviously his family and himself. But we gave Dan what we would like to think is as much support as possible within our realms. Obviously, it was down to the treatment and the doctors and the surgeons, and obviously delighted to say that Dan made a recovery. Update on his progress now. He's training every day. He had a little injury a couple of weeks ago, but he's back out on the grass now. And trust me, when you saw Dan at probably his darkest times, when he was going through his treatment, and you know, we all felt so sorry for him, but we're just willing him and wanting to see him back on the grass, to see him diving around there. You know, it's really special, because you know, some things go beyond football. This was a serious matter. We're delighted for Dan. Dan is back to himself. You wouldn't know that he'd obviously had the disease now, which is fantastic. And we can't wait for him to make that next step now. So he's in full training. He's played one or two games, but really good news for Dan, and fingers crossed obviously that he's now able to continue his career and have a really long and successful career. Finn Baker has asked, are we in the market for any more signings, or are we all pretty much done? It's a case of wait and see, really. You go right up to the end of the window, as you would expect me to say, but I suppose the obvious area is left back. There's a lot of people wondering, you know, what's happening with that position with Sam McCallum and Demetrius, and also Jakob, who played at left back, getting himself an injury. So it's a case of wait and see. We have Sam Byron coming back from injury. Be good to see how fit he is now. We'd like to think he's ready to go. But it will be a case of wait and see, really. We feel the squad we've got now is capable of doing what we want it to do. But you never say never. Something might come up, a player might go, which might free up a place. And of course, we may pick up in injuries in the games between now and the end of the transfer window. So we feel we've got a really good squad here, and obviously we'd like to keep the players here. But again, it's sometimes it's beyond your control if a deal suits a player, suits the club. But we just feel that we've assembled a squad that's capable of doing what we want it to do. But things can change, as everybody knows. Paul has asked, what's happened to Josh Martin, and will he be involved again? Josh at the minute is like one of several players who you will have seen during this transfer window, who is looking to get himself another club. Opportunities here to play in our team, and Josh has obviously been informed of this, are going to be limited. And so in that case, he's done the right thing and trying to go out and make sure that you play, and that's what every footballer wants. You don't want to be sitting in the stands on a Saturday, you want to be playing games. So again, never say never. Of course, he's our player. He's a very good player, had a great loan last year. But Josh is there's a player that both I and his agents at the moment are looking to see if there's a better option for him. Only Norwich has asked, will the women's team be invested in for a future in the women's football? It's baby steps, this is. Obviously, we've officially brought in Flo Allen, a really experienced person with that, and pleased to say they got the first win of the season, a great 4-1 win. But of course, yes, we saw what happened with the women's football in the summer. It's certainly taking off now, and we're really proud that we've got a women's team that's now up and running. And hopefully we'll get better and better. But yes, the club will support the women's team. But at the moment, we're almost at the first stage, the first step, and we need to take that gently, step by step. But certainly something the club will be fully backing. Thank you everybody for sending in the questions. There's too many obviously to do within the time constraints, but hopefully you've had a little insight now into my role at the football club and some of the goings on here from day to day.